Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Adam Miles and I'm a personal development coach. And recently I wrote an article that has to do with certainty and the illusion of comfort that we get when we believe that we're really right about something. I know I love to be right, but when I really examine what the cost of being right is in my relationships, it's sometimes a price I'm not willing to pay. So let's jump on into the article here. It's titled The Comfort of Certainty and the Courage to Let Go. The ego loves solid ground. It wants answers, closure, rightness. It wants to draw a clean line through the mess of life and stand on the side that feels safe. Certainty feels like protection. It feels like control. When we are clinging to a belief or a conclusion or an interpretation, it often has very little to do with truth and almost everything to do with emotional security. The trouble is that certainty is a poor substitute for the real thing. It gives temporary relief, but it asks for something very costly in return. It demands rigidity, it narrows your world, it closes your curiosity, and it stiffens your relationships. It locks you into the same reaction and the same pattern because there's no room for your perspective to evolve. Certainty feels like strength, but it behaves more like armor, and armor always restricts movement. Emotional maturity asks for something entirely different. It asks us to tolerate ambiguity. It asks us to hold two perspectives at the same time. It asks us to soften our grip on absolutes and stand in the uncomfortable middle where life is actually lived. People often mistake this for weakness. In reality, it requires far more courage than certainty ever did. People who cling tightly to certainty usually do it because the alternative feels like failing. Not knowing feels dangerous, doubt feels destabilizing, and ambiguity feels like a threat to identity. What we forget is that identity built on rigid thinking is already unstable. If your well being depends on things being just one way, then anything that challenges that belief becomes a crisis. This is not emotional security, that is dependence. Real security feels different. It has space in it. It allows for the possibility that your perspective might be incomplete. It lets other people have their truths without threatening yours. It makes room for new information. It frees you from the exhausting job of defending a fixed position. It gives you enough internal stability to listen instead of react, to question instead of argue, to stay present instead of retreating behind your certainty. If you want to know where certainty has you by the throat, look for the places where your mind tightens. Notice the moments where a different opinion irritates you more than it should. Pay attention to the issues you cannot discuss without getting tense. Watch where your voice gets louder or your chest gets tight, or the need to explain yourself becomes urgent. These are not signs of clarity, these are signs of fear, and fear is always trying to protect something fragile. Now, letting go of certainty does not mean you abandon your values or your discernment. It means you stop confusing emotional safety with intellectual control. It means you recognize that your perspective is one angle, not the entire horizon. It means you build enough internal strength to remain open without collapsing. That is the difference between the ego and the mature self. The ego wants absolutes, the mature self wants truth, and truth often arrives dressed in a contradiction. Most people never question their certainty because they assume it's what keeps them stable. But the deeper stability comes somewhere else entirely. It comes from trusting your ability to navigate the unknown. It comes from believing that you can handle more than one perspective at a time. It comes from realizing that reality does not need your permission to be complex. When you stop demanding certainty, the world stops feeling so threatening. You become free to experience life instead of arguing with it. There is a quiet reward of emotional growth. You no longer need things to be simple in order to feel grounded. You can meet life as it is, not as you insist it must be. You can hold a paradox without losing yourself. You become flexible where you were once rigid and curious where you were once defensive. And in that shift, relationships deepen, anxiety loosens, and you begin to feel something that certainty never gave you, and that is peace. In the end, the question becomes painfully simple. Would you rather be right, or would you rather be happy? You can cling to your certainty, or you can step into the kind of emotional freedom that only lives on the other side of it. But you cannot have both. Thank you very much for listening to this article, and I hope it resonated something in you that is worth investigating. If you like content like this, please feel free to check out my other videos. Until next time, take care and so long.